Okay, picture this. It's the evening of May 22nd, 2026. You're standing out on the wet, reflective concrete of this massive industrial oil jetty. The air is heavy, it's humid, and then suddenly it's pierced by this violent, hissing spray of petrol. Almost instantly, blaring alarms just shatter the tense atmosphere. Flashing red emergency lights start cutting through this thick, highly volatile haze of fuel vapor that's settling right over the dark water. I mean, it literally feels like a scene pulled straight out of a Hollywood thriller, right? A ticking clock where just one tiny spark could set off a massive inferno. But this isn't a movie. This was a very real, highly complex industrial emergency that went down at one of India's most critical maritime hubs. The Paradip Port pipeline rupture, a cinematic incident report. So let's dive right into this explainer, because to really grasp the sheer scale of this emergency, we've got to establish one absolutely crucial fact right up front. Despite a massive fuel pipeline literally bursting right in the middle of a high-volume cargo operation, there were 0 explosions and 0 casualties. None. So how exactly did they manage to prevent what could have been an absolute catastrophe? Well, let's break it down. To really understand the response here, we first need to look at the setup. This whole thing started during a totally routine evening cargo unloading operation. You've got this massive oil tanker. The specific name hasn't been officially released in the public reports, but it's berthed right at the South Oil Jetty of the Indian Oil Corporation Limited, or Iocl terminal. They're busy pumping refined petroleum ashore. And then suddenly, bam! Due to what early reports suspect was a massive buildup of pressure, an underground fuel pipeline connecting the ship to the onshore terminal violently bursts open. Thousands of liters of raw petrol just start spraying everywhere across the jetty. We're talking an ultra-realistic, incredibly dangerous industrial crisis unfolding right at the water's edge. And man, this situation escalated fast. Let's walk through the timeline chronologically. Right at 5 p.m., the vessel unloading kicks off just like normal. But only 15 minutes later, at 5:15, personnel from the Central Industrial Security Force, the CISF, who are out patrolling the restricted zone near gate number 1, they catch this powerful, totally unmistakable smell of petrol. And they didn't wait around. By 5:20 p.m., just 5 minutes later, they've already alerted the IOCL authorities and triggered the emergency alarms. 10 minutes after that, at 5:30, boom, a full port knockdown is initiated in the entire affected zone. That incredibly fast detection phase, that's exactly what set the stage for preventing a massive explosion. Every single minute counted. The climax. Emergency response protocol activated. Once those alarms actually went off, the whole area completely transformed. IOCL emergency teams, fully geared up in heavy PPE suits, rushed straight into this highly volatile, totally restricted zone. You had fire services and technical experts just swarming the place. Security cordons went up immediately to make sure absolutely no unauthorized personnel could get in, basically eliminating any chance of an accidental spark. It was this perfectly choreographed race against time in an incredibly hazardous environment. Now, this tactical response relied on a super strict 3-step protocol. Step 1, fire crews immediately moved in and deployed a thick foam blanket. This was absolutely crucial to suppress all those highly flammable vapors rising off the spilled petrol. Step 2, while the fire crews held that line, IOCL technical teams were working under just immense pressure to physically isolate and mechanically seal that ruptured underground pipeline, completely cutting off the fuel source. And then, Step 3, with the leak finally stopped, the focus had to shift to the water, so they deployed the MOSRU to clean up the coastal environment. It's this exact, highly detailed, step-by-step industrial response that completely averted a catastrophic explosion. MOSRU, Mobile Oil Spill Recovery Unit. This is specialized maritime equipment deployed to salvage spilled furnace oil and clean coastal waters to prevent environmental disaster. Honestly, this piece of tech is the real hero of that final step. It's designed exactly for nightmare scenarios just like this one. Picture it, operating in the glow of those cinematic emergency lights. The MOSRU was deployed right into the adjacent water bodies to salvage the spilled fuel and physically scrub those coastal waters clean. Because at this point, it's not just about stopping a fire anymore. It's about stopping a severe environmental disaster from unfolding right there on the shoreline. And mitigating that disaster? Yeah, that was no small feat. Because before they managed to fully seal that pipeline, thousands of liters of petrol had already poured out. And that fuel didn't just sit in a puddle on the concrete. It soaked deep into the surrounding soil near the Nehru bungalow area and even seeped into nearby water bodies. So the threat completely shifted from, an immediate explosive hazard to this slow-moving, toxic environmental crisis. Those wet, reflective surfaces around the port were now slick with a highly dangerous chemical sheen, which automatically triggered the port's absolute strictest environmental containment protocols. Environmental containment priorities. Let's look at these. Assess marine pollution risks, track soil contamination, check water safety levels, and enforce coastal zone management rules. This is exactly where the environmental monitoring teams had to step up with some immediate, super rigorous priorities. They had to figure out the marine pollution risks to local aquatic life. They had to track exactly how deep and honestly how far that soil contamination had managed to spread. Plus, they were actively testing the water safety levels in all the surrounding creeks and estuaries, making sure they strictly adhered to the port's Tier 1 oil spill response protocols. This is that grueling, meticulous behind-the-scenes work that goes on long after the flashing red lights are finally turned off. But you might be wondering, how did they know exactly what to do and so incredibly fast? Well, the answer actually lies in paperwork, specifically an Environmental Clearance and Coastal Regulation Zone Compliance Report for the facility. This document legally mandated a comprehensive oil spill contingency plan way before this incident ever even happened. It just goes to show that bureaucratic readiness, actually having the right equipment, the proper training, and the legal obligation to respond instantly, that is exactly what saved Paradip Port. These emergency teams weren't just winging it, they were literally executing a pre-written playbook. Official port statements versus local media reports. Now, as with pretty much any major industrial incident, the narrative kind of splits depending on who you listen to. On one hand, the official Iocl and port statements were pretty tight-lipped. They really emphasized that the rupture happened in an isolated, restricted area. They confirmed everything was quickly stabilized, and they heavily highlighted the fact that there were 0 casualties. But on the other hand, regional media outlets, places like Odisha TV and Pragattivadi, they painted a slightly different picture. They reported intense panic among the port workers, emphasized the truly massive volume of the spill, and raised some immediate alarms about soil and water contamination. The reality of a disaster like this, it usually lives somewhere right in between the calm technical language of the authorities and the visceral on-the-ground reality experienced by the locals. So, what does this near miss mean for the aging infrastructure and environmental safety of major global ports? That brings us to our final takeaway for this explainer. The Paradip Port pipeline rupture was an absolutely terrifying near miss. Yes, it was contained through incredibly swift action, strict protocols, and, let's be real, some incredible luck that no spark was present, but I really want to leave you with that question on the screen. This whole incident throws a glaring spotlight on the fragility of our global industrial supply chains. It really challenges us to ponder whether our aging maritime infrastructure can truly withstand the immense pressures we put on it every single day. It's a complex, ongoing issue for sure, but understanding the mechanics of incidents exactly like this one, that's the very first step toward demanding better safety and resilience in the future.